I'm Ed Henry, in for Harris Faulkner. If you're just joining us, the Russia probe appears to be moving full steam ahead. This despite the president repeatedly slamming the probe, claiming that special counsel Robert Mueller is leading a witch hunt. North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican who's sponsoring a bill to prevent the president from potentially firing Mueller, responding today.
I'm not sure that I agree with the witch hunt, and we'll let the facts lead us to whether or not it was a hoax or a distraction. But we are where we are, and I want to see this investigation concluded so that we can get on to doing the good work the president's already started with regulatory reform, health care, and tax reform. This is a distraction I'd like to get past so that I can do as I have, go back to supporting the president's agenda.
Let's bring in Jay Chabria, former senior advisor to Ohio Governor John Kasich and managing director for Mercury LLC. And Capri Cafaro, former Democratic minority leader in the Ohio Senate and executive residence, fancy title, at American University's School of Public Affairs. Good evening to you both.
Good evening.
Hello. Jay, I want to ask you, this idea that you've got a Republican senator trying to block the president from even having the power to potentially, and I underline, potentially fire the special counsel if he goes far afield, and yet this same senator is claiming we want to stay focused on the issues. We want to stay focused on taxes and regulatory reform. Right. Isn't that impossible in Washington right now with these investigations?
Well, it seems to be very difficult, but here's the real nut of it. The President of the United States needs to treat this investigation like gravity. It's something that's going to happen. Mueller has wide authority. He's not doing anything improper here. It's like gravity. If you treat it like every time an apple falls from a tree and you shriek and you say that's some unnatural act, that's where the distractions come in, and that's what takes you off your legislative agenda. If you treat it like something that's going to be there, you put it in its box, you compartmentalize it, and you continue doing the work that the people elect you to do, you're going to have a lot more success. And I think that's what the senator is trying to say.
Capri, it seems like the new White House Chief of Staff, General John Kelly, is instituting some more order inside the White House. It's only been a few days, but we haven't seen the president out there tweeting quite as much about the investigation, sort of inflaming things. Right. Do you think this was a good move as we head into the second week of John Kelly at the helm?
Certainly, I think that anything that brings some order to the White House is good for the country and good for the White House. You know, regardless of whether or not you support President Trump and the Republican agenda, we want to see our government function. And as Jay said, you know, when people get distracted by derailing the conversation away from, you know, the legislative agenda and towards these issues, you know, that is really what derails the conversation. I mean, the only way that the Russia issue gets put behind us collectively is if Robert Mueller is allowed to do his investigation independently and put this whole thing behind us. That's the only way we're going to know what the realities are of this issue. And that bill is a bipartisan bill. We have 3 co-equal branches of government, and all they're trying to do is essentially codify current Department of Justice practices.
But Capri, I want to stay with you for a second as a Democrat. It all sounds wonderful, but since when did Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democratic leader, start working with this president on any of those issues that you say Washington should be focused on?
Look, and I'm critical of the Democrats on that as well. You know, Chuck Schumer did make some intimations that he would be willing to work with Republicans in regards to finding a way to fix the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. But there's no question about it. Democrats and Republicans alike need to work together. And I will be just as critical to Democrats saying, you know, that they need to come to the table with solutions as well, because both parties are, you know, are charged with the job of governing. Okay. And they're both held accountable.
Jay, that sounds fair and balanced to me. Let's turn to you as the Republican then, because we heard from our own Kristen Fisher at the top of the hour that Vice President Mike Pence is pretty hot about this New York Times piece suggesting that Republicans, including maybe your former boss, John Kasich, who I see is heading to New Hampshire soon, which is a state that a lot of people, if they're thinking about running for president, like to go to. But Vice President Pence is upset at the idea that maybe the New York Times is suggesting he's waiting in the wings in case something happens to President Trump. Here's what Kellyanne Conway said about all this.
The president says privately and publicly often, George, that he'll be there for 7.5 more years. So he plans on being a 2-term president. It is absolutely true that the vice president is getting ready for 2020 for re-election as vice president.
So they're upset. They say, look, the vice president's not waiting in the wings. And in fact, as part of their defense, the vice president's office is saying tonight he's planning this fall, 2017, Jay, to start going out there and doing events for the president and his reelection before we've even gotten to the midterms. Does that tell you that he's being loyal, or does it also tell you that maybe they're getting nervous? I mean, this is 3.5 years out and they're looking ahead to 2020.
So I think it would be political suicide for the vice president to actually be looking at 2020. That's why I don't buy this. I think this is really a look towards 2024 for a lot of them. And everyone, look, the lure of the presidency is all-consuming. When you're running one of these presidential campaigns, you've got to start early. You've got to lay the groundwork. And I think what you're seeing from a lot of these people out there, they're starting to look past the 2020 election because challenging a sitting president it's a lot. And especially when you're the vice president there. So you're going to be looking to see what you can do, how you can build support for those future elections after that.
Capri, what do you think about the idea about the vice president this fall already looking out there at doing re-election events for the president? Right. We now see this Trump TV operation that's out there with Laura Trump, one of the daughter-in-laws of the president, already sort of gearing up for 2020. This has gotten, pretty early. They're jumping in.
Well, look, I think that every single election cycle becomes shorter and shorter and shorter by virtue of the 24-hour news cycle and Twitter and everything else. Speculation just continues to grow. And so, it doesn't surprise me that they're trying to start the reelection efforts so early. We're already hearing about Democrats as well that are out there going to places like Iowa and New Hampshire and discussions surrounding, who may be the next person to challenge President Trump in 2020. So we're looking past midterms, but I think at this point, people are trying to prepare because it costs more and more, and the cycle continues to become shorter and shorter.
Jay, already looking ahead, 2018 midterms, 2020 presidential. Our viewers want to know, what about the substantive issues? Here's Republican Senator Orrin Hatch on with Maria Bartiromo today talking taxes.
Is it doable in 2017?
I actually think it is, but it's going to take Democrats and Republicans getting together, putting aside their stupid differences and saying, look, this one time, let's do this for our country, let's do this for our American citizens, let's do this for our economy, let's do this for the world, really, because the United States is the key country in the world. If we're not strong, the rest of the world's going to be in chaos even worse than it is right now.
I need 30 seconds from each of you. Jay, first, what about this notion about whether or not both parties are going to be able to come together? And I suspect that some of the president's supporters are out there saying, where's my tax cut you talked about?
Well, here's the thing. True tax reform is going to make health care look like child's play. This is where all the lobbyists, all the special interests are going to come out and protect their own pockets. And that's going to be the issue that the administration and the Congress is going to have. What I would do if I were them is move on to try to get some legislative wins. Get a transportation, get an infrastructure budget going. Get something like that. Start building some things. Build some momentum so that you can start to go back and get some of these other pieces. Trying to do something too big.
Yep.
Yeah. Capri,
I agree with Jay.
But you were saying earlier that you agree that you want to be critical of some of the Democratic leaders for not working with this president. Is taxes something finally that maybe they'll work with the president on so it's a victory for all sides, or are they just going to try to deny the president victories at all turns?
I don't think it's about denying the president victories. I think that there are significant differences between Democrats and Republicans, particularly in Washington, in regards to their philosophies surrounding tax policy. So I think that it's going to be more challenging. I agree with Jay that infrastructure is probably the better bet if you want to have an early legislative bipartisan win, and maybe there'll be a smaller bill with some tax cuts involved, but comprehensive tax reform is going to take time.
Well, if we bring smart people...
The best thing the Republicans have going for them is the Democrats and the lack of vision that they have for any kind of economic plan, and that's what's going to be their failing on the Democrat side.
Well,
they don't have anything positive that they're saying.
Smart people to the table, like Jay and Capri, maybe we'll deal with those stupid differences, as Senator Hatch talked about on Maria's show. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Capri.
As lawmakers now consider a bipartisan fix to Obamacare, Fox News digs into new concerns about the future of the health care safety net. Dr.